Good morning, everyone. Mike Forster here, and I hope you're all well. Today we will be looking at mental health first aid. We'll be looking at the purpose of it, what it actually means in practice. We'll touch upon how it can be useful, as we did in my previous video. And we'll look at, towards the end of the video, what the course is actually like. It's a 2-day course, and I'll talk you through sort of the experiences I had when I went on that course, which may be useful for you if you were thinking about doing it yourself. Okay, so what actually is mental health first aid? If you're anything like me, you'll know the first aid part, you won't quite be sure of where the mental health comes into it. So Mental Health First Aid England, the organisation one of the organisations that actually run this course and ran the course I went on, state that mental health first aid is the help offered to a person developing a mental health issue, experiencing a worsening of an existing issue, or in a mental health crisis. And you give that first aid until appropriate professional help is received or until the crisis appears to be resolved. And that is very key. If any of you out there are wanting to become first aiders, you're not a counsellor, you're not a doctor, you're not a therapist, you're a mental health first aider. You're not medically qualified. So you are sort of an in-between, so that the person can talk to somebody before they can get their appropriate professional help. Now, the Mental Health First Aid Action Plan. This is something that's given to mental health first aiders, and they learn as part of the 2-day course that I undertook. And the action plan absolutely rolls off the tongue, this. ALGE. And it actually is easier to remember than you'd imagine. So what is ALGE? ALGE is Approach, Assess and Assist. It is Listen and Communicate Non-Judgmentally. I'll go into more detail about these in a moment. Give support and information. Encourage appropriate professional help. And encourage other support, for example, family and friends. Now, during my time as a mental health first aider, I've been a first aider for over 2 years now. All of these come into play at some point. The first one, the approach, assess and assist, only comes into play if you're noticing somebody else having issues. So it may be obvious, it may be the fact that somebody's sat at their desk at work, they've got their head in their hands, you know, they're not normally like that. That isn't normal practice in the workplace. So you may approach them, you may say, are you okay? Do you want to have a minute? And then assist, which then moves you on to the LGEE part of ALGE. Or that may not be appropriate at all, and that person may come to you, which in my experience is what happens more often than not, once they know there is a mental health first aider in their workplace. The second part of it, listen and communicate non-judgmentally, is an absolutely vital part of the ALGE process. You're not there to talk to them. You're not there necessarily to give any advice either. You're there to listen to what their issue is. And when you do communicate, you do it without judgment. And what that means, and we all have a tendency to do this at times, is, you know, we use our own life experience to subconsciously make judgments upon others. What you have to do as a mental health first aider is remove yourself from that situation and allow the person to have their own feelings. So if you disagree with what they're saying about themselves or about their situation, don't tell them that, just let them be. And trust me, that's a lot simpler than it sounds, but that is something that you need to do. So give support and information. Obviously, depending on the situation you're being confronted with. If it's in the workplace, you know, it may be somebody who's struggling either with their workload and they don't want to speak to their manager, or they may be struggling with, you know, a mental illness, anxiety, depression, anything really. You know, as a mental health first aider, you will have a book which is given to you, which has information about all different mental illnesses, all different support organisations. So keep that with you, and whatever situation you're confronted with, there should be something in there to help you with that. And obviously you can then pass that information on to the person you were talking to. Encourage appropriate professional help. This one is the biggie for me. You have to make sure that the person you're talking to gets medical help if they need it. It says encourage. Strongly encourage is the word I would use. Because, again, you aren't a doctor, you aren't a therapist, you're not medically trained. You cannot be there for them every single week like a counsellor or a therapist would be. You are there in an emergency situation, as Mental Health England stated earlier on. So encourage them to see their GP, encourage them to contact the Samaritans if they need to, encourage them to visit websites such as Mind. You know, there's all sorts of different places. I'll drop a couple of links in the description of places where people can go if they're not feeling too great about themselves. But encourage that professional help. And finally, this one links into the previous one, encourage other support, for example, family and friends. And again, you know, this is important because, as I've just mentioned, you can't be there for that person week in, week out, especially if you're a mental health first aider in the workplace. Because, you know, as much as my workplace appreciate the fact I'm a first aider, and it is useful because there are times where people may, instead of going off home sick, they'll come and see me for half an hour and then they'll go back to work and be a bit more productive. That is useful, but at the same time, you cannot be there every single week because that's eating into your work time as well. And there's got to be a fine balance there. So if you can encourage these people who come to you to speak to a close friend, speak to a member of their family, get support that way as well, then that person doesn't become reliant on you. So, if you've made it this far into the video and you're interested in becoming a mental health first aider, then this part is for you. The mental health first aid course that I attended through Mental Health First Aid England and St John's Ambulance was a 2-day course, and before going into it, I expected to learn skills that would help me help others in a mental health crisis, as Mental Health First Aid England put it. What I came out with was, yes, those skills, but also, and most surprisingly, a better understanding of myself and my own mental health. Not long after the course, I had a conversation with someone in a mental health first aid capacity, and they asked me about the course. And the way I worded it was, I came out of that course feeling like I could control my own mental health instead of it controlling me. And if that sounds familiar to any of you out there, then, you know, really consider this course, because not only does it give you the skills to help others, but it also gives you the skills to help yourself. So more about the course in general. I'll pre-warn you guys, it is very intensive. You will hear a lot of difficult things, but you will also learn about a lot of different mental illnesses. You need to be open and honest when you go on that course, because there'll probably be about 9 or 10 other people in the room with you doing the same course, and it does involve a little bit of role play. So as long as you can buy into that, then, you know, go for it. Try and become a mental health first aider, because we do need more of them. We need more in the workplace. We need more in everyday life. And, you know, if that sounds like you, and I haven't put you off at all, and I've hopefully encouraged you, then please go for it, because it is very worthwhile. It's helped me help myself and others. And, you know, it can only be of benefit that we have more mental health first aiders moving forward. So that brings this video to a close. Thank you for sticking around and listening. There will be more videos, and I will be doing more obviously on my Facebook and on my Instagram, so if you haven't followed me on those yet, I'll drop a link in the description below. Go and follow me on those because I post mental health related stuff on there as well. That being said, thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.